Hello everyone, welcome to Diplomatic Briefing. The United States has taken new steps to hinder China's development in artificial intelligence, AI. On July 4th, Bloomberg, citing sources familiar with the matter, reported that the U.S. is concerned China might obtain semiconductors through intermediaries. The Trump administration plans to restrict companies like Nvidia from exporting AI chips to Malaysia and Thailand. This source revealed that, on top of the existing ban on selling Nvidia's advanced AI processors to China, the U.S. Department of Commerce is drafting a new rule to further prevent China from obtaining advanced AI chips through intermediaries in these two Southeast Asian countries. He also stated that this rule has not been finalized yet and is still subject to change. This person said that while the U.S. plans to impose controls on Malaysia and Thailand, it also intends to officially revoke the AI diffusion export control framework. In January of this year, in a last-minute move during its final week in office, the Biden administration hastily introduced the AI diffusion export control framework, establishing a three-tier licensing system for chip sales worldwide, in an effort to further block so-called backdoors for China to obtain advanced chips. Before the rule was set to take effect in May, the Trump administration announced the repeal of the relevant regulations, marking a major shift in U.S. chip export policy. At the same time, during Trump's visit to the Middle East, the U.S. began negotiations with Saudi Arabia and the UAE, both of which were subject to the second-tier controls under the AI diffusion export control framework on expanding AI chip exports. These two countries had previously faced dual restrictions from the U.S. on both the quantity and licensing of AI chip exports. However, the report notes that Washington will continue to maintain its relentless restrictions on China, which began in 2022 and have been continuously tightened and upgraded. These include a 2023 measure that restricts semiconductor exports to China from more than 40 countries and regions. It is still unclear whether the Trump administration will ultimately regulate AI chip exports to more countries and regions beyond Malaysia and Thailand. The U.S. restrictions on China have previously sparked fierce opposition from industry giants such as Nvidia. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang said in May that there was no evidence of high-end AI chips being smuggled or diverted, and he welcomed the Trump administration's move to lift the AI export control framework. At the same time, Jensen Huang also complained that the U.S. government's ban was extremely costly and caused Nvidia significant pain, already resulting in a loss of $15 billion in sales for the company. In June, while attending events in several European countries, he renewed his criticism of U.S. chip export restrictions, once again stressing that the idea of preventing other countries from acquiring American technology by restricting the spread of artificial intelligence, AI, technology is fundamentally wrong. If American companies do not compete in the Chinese market, then Chinese technology will spread throughout the world. China has repeatedly made its stern position clear regarding the U.S.'s malicious blockade and suppression of China's semiconductor industry. The U.S. has politicized, securitized, and instrumentalized economic, trade, and technological issues, continuously escalating chip export controls against China and coercing other countries to suppress China's semiconductor industry. Such actions hinder the development of the global semiconductor industry and will ultimately backfire, harming both others and itself. In summary, this move by the U.S. government proves that the U.S. will not stop trying to contain China, and it also shows that it is very necessary for China to establish an export control system for critical minerals, so that it can counter the U.S. at any time. On the other hand, although the U.S. is trying to suppress China in all aspects of AI development, some American media have found that Chinese companies, with their high-cost performance products, are now challenging the U.S. in the field of artificial intelligence. According to a July 1st report by the Wall Street Journal, from Asia, the Middle East, and Africa to Europe, and from public universities to multinational banks, more and more international users are starting to turn to Chinese AI large models instead of American products. Sources have revealed that HSBC and Standard Chartered in the UK have already begun internal testing of DeepSeek's AI large model from China. The world's largest oil producer, Saudi Aramco, has also recently deployed DeepSeek in their data centers. Although the White House has banned the use of this model on some U.S. government devices under the pretext of so-called data security, major American cloud service providers, including Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, are also offering DeepSeek to their customers. The report points out that, just like in many other industries, Chinese companies have started attracting a large number of customers with their AI large models that offer comparable performance at a lower price. And this is crucial for the future competition between China and the U.S. in AI technology. As Brad Smith, president of Microsoft, said, At a recent U.S. congressional hearing, the primary factor that will determine whether the U.S. or China wins this competition is whose technology is most widely adopted in other parts of the world. Whoever gets there first will be hard to replace. OpenAI's ChatGPT is still the most mainstream AI model in the world. According to data from market research firms, its downloads have reached 910 million, while DeepSeek's are at 125 million. However, Chinese companies' AI large models are continuously catching up in terms of performance, and are aggressively pursuing the market at prices several times lower. The advantage held by American companies is narrowing. A study released by Harvard University in early June pointed out that China has natural advantages in the two key resources for AI development, data and talent, which helps China keep pace with the United States. The Wall Street Journal analyzed that while American AI companies are currently prioritizing major breakthroughs in artificial superintelligence, the Chinese AI industry is more focused on practical applications. This pragmatic approach explains how Chinese AI models are rapidly penetrating the global market. Leading Chinese AI companies, including Tencent and Baidu, have open-sourced their large models, allowing users to freely modify and deploy them, which has greatly stimulated enthusiasm among developers in companies worldwide. Analysts point out that this strategy is forcing American companies to justify the logic behind their high prices. Alibaba, on the other hand, says that more than 100,000 models have already been derived from their open-source Tony Qianwen. Last year, when Japanese AI startup Abeja was developing a custom AI model for Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, they chose Tony Qianwen instead of similar products from Google or Meta. Zankov, co-founder of the Cyprus-based AI platform Liadno, said that among their global users, 1 in 5 chooses the DeepSeek model because its quality is comparable, but the price is only 1/17. For places like Chile and Brazil, where funding and computing power are not so abundant, this is especially attractive to customers. A research team at the University of the Witwatersrand in South Africa also chose to use this model for some pilot projects, taking into account DeepSeek's open-source nature and its advantage of being usable offline to ensure data security. The Wall Street Journal pointed out that just a few years ago, the AI industries of the United States and China were closely intertwined. In 2018, deals involving American investors accounted for about 30% of the $21.9 billion invested in China's AI industry. Chinese students also flocked to American universities and Silicon Valley companies. But now, everything has changed. In order to curb the development of AI in China, the United States has introduced a series of restrictions, attempting to prevent Chinese AI companies from obtaining American chips, algorithms, and capital, and is even considering even stricter measures. In response to the U.S. crackdown, China has resolutely accelerated the construction of an AI supply chain that does not rely on the United States. Not only have the U.S. restrictions failed to stop the rapid development of AI in China, they have actually caused Western chip and other hardware manufacturers to suffer huge losses. After Trump halted Nvidia's sales of its specially designed H20 chips to the Chinese market, investment bank Jefferies predicted that this move would cost Nvidia $10 billion in revenue. The Wall Street Journal warned that if Chinese companies' AI models are adopted globally, American companies like Google and Meta could face a loss of market share and revenue. Since the beginning of this year, OpenAI has been aggressively expanding into overseas markets, opening offices in Europe and Asia. In an article published by their company on June 25, it was pointed out that Chinese AI rising star Zhipu AI is helping to build AI infrastructure in Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. This has made OpenAI, which has similar business interests, so anxious that they're seeing red, once again rehashing the old tune and hyping up so-called security risks posed by Chinese companies. Industry insiders have pointed out that as Chinese and American AI systems become increasingly separated, AI models will make it even easier for users to become trapped in an information cocoon filled with misinformation and propaganda. Looking further ahead, if the two countries lack cooperation on AI safety issues, the global ability to address potential AI risks in the future will be seriously undermined. In conclusion, first, the United States wants technological hegemony and aims to maintain its leading position in AI, which is why it keeps suppressing China. Second, the more the US tries to suppress China, the more China is able to carve out a new path of its own. A great example of this is DeepSeek, which chose not to compete with you in computing power, but instead in algorithms, and as a result, managed to break into a new track with low costs once again. Third, while the US pursues technological hegemony, China is striving for technological equality. Fourth, this is precisely why the United States cannot tolerate China's rise, because China is breaking the hegemony that the West has established in all aspects.